Hello, welcome back. So in our last class, actually last uh, video segment, um, we uh, we had to pause at the right before finding free cash flow to the firm, but we've got everything that is necessary for free cash flow of the firm, and um, Our we paused actually right before the question of whether the profit they are talking about here is uh, EBI or EAT. But again, if you because it needs to be more precisely defined, because if it is EAT, uh, this is wrong. I mean, it's incorrect. It's not the um, because EAT in this context, I mean, profit in this context is EBI, because um, if you look at the formula for free cash flow to the firm, it's EBIT, right, times 1 minus tau C, tax rate, right? So that means after tax EBIT, right? After tax EBIT would be what? I would call it EBI. But of course, normally, if you tax comes after interest, so you might think, after tax isn't after, no, EB, after tax profit is EAT, and before tax is EBT. But here, uh, again, the only interest is a cash flow that is also at the disposal of the company. Of course, they have to pay interest to the creditors or the bondholders, but if push comes to shove, right, or worst comes to the worst, if worst comes to the worst, then they will have to freeze all interest payment, right? But the taxes, that's not something they can withhold, right? Something that they can, freeze. Tax belongs to the government, and it's not something they can put their hand on. So the idea is this is, and it says clearly, uh, profits after tax. So that's that's the cause of the confusion. I mean, because after tax profit is EAT, but in this context it can't be. And so profits and interest together. I mean, profits and interest together, right? Also, since profits and interest after tax, right? In other words, after benefiting from the uh, after benefiting from the uh, tax break or tax shelter from in the interest. So, uh, okay, if we, I thought, if I only look at the profit, then it would have to be EBI. But because they have separate interest payment line item here, so when you combine these two, then it actually becomes, oh, what happened to my, this was a problem. If something like this happens, I will have to close the file and uh, open it again. That kind of, uh, my God, this happened. the file, sorry about that, the file froze up. So I have to reopen it. And okay. And there I need to share that again. So, okay. So I think you can see this, what's happening. Yeah, there you go. So the point is, this is actually, I should actually, EBI, so let me, so it's getting, so let's call this EBI. That's the tricky part, controlling the mouse. EB, like it is a something like a paintbrush or uh, 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 that's EBI. Now, and okay, so here, so eventually it turned out to be EAT, and then add interest back in there, right? So then it's EBI. So that makes this part, right? And then we have depreciation, change in working capital, right? Excuse me. Change in net working capital and CAPEX, capital expense. So therefore, following this formula, right? So I'll have to stop this. So what do they do? First of all, profit. I would have done it slightly in different order, but what they did was profit minus D13 is, yeah, whatever should be subtracted. They subtracted first, change in working capital, um, and then subtracted then D15, which is capital expense, CAPEX, and then added back, interest, right? D12 and depreciation. Okay, so that's a little, I mean, everything is there, but I would have done if I were to, well, just like the formula, I would sum first profit, interest, and depreciation. Okay, and then minus, right? And then inside also sum of change in net working capital and capital expense. And close parentheses. Let's see. Yeah. See, this something's not right because something isn't captured in there. Okay, that's fine. I can do it. Typo. Um, what's wrong? Why isn't it getting it? Um, okay. It was just switching, some, position of, but let's try this again. What I would do is, okay, let's try. This plus this, and then plus depreciation. Yeah, and then minus change in working capital minus capital expenses. Uh, Something is missing. D11, D12, D14. Why is it 8? Oh, I was, I was, um, unconsciously, uh, I was just, referring to those labels, but then I actually, uh, there you go. You come to the same result, right? Because it's not really a big deal. But so doing it that way, and I copy and paste it all across, right? Drag it all across, and then we get these, as our free cash flow to the firm, of course, forecast, and then um, terminal value means, uh, using, yeah, I annotated value of the company beyond 2018, right? Yeah, roughly you can think of it as that, uh, the present value. It's not today, not present value as of 2014, but the present value as of end of 2018. Uh, uh, the present value of all the future cash flows beyond 2018, right? Uh, and as of 2018, end of 2018 as present, right? So this is the step that is necessary for using golden growth model, right? Uh, and in free cash flow to the equity, free cash flow to the equity holders, right? And then the only difference is, so if it is, you have to uh, you have to do pretty much the same thing, from free cash flow to the firm, and then you have to pay out interest, right? And then uh, plus, long-term debt. You can't touch that, right? Uh, Equity holders cannot touch that, right? Interest, equity holders cannot touch that, right? Uh, and D5 minus C5 is what? The change in long-term debt, right? Uh, over 1 year period, right? So there you go, and you drag it across, and then will generate. Of course, only to this point. This one was already, yeah. Oh, yeah. This was also, this is calculated by Gordon growth model. So G17, which is the dividend at time t plus one. Dividend at time t, and then times 1 plus growth rate. That will be a dividend at time t plus 1. But at this time, it is not dividend, but future free cash flow, right? Over weighted average cost of capital, right? Minus growth rate, right? But then you might wonder, okay, growth rate is where? This is the growth rate, right? Okay. And what is the, where is the weighted average cost of capital? Here, weighted average. And weighted average cost of capital each year would be different because capital structure would change. Okay. Yeah. And if you look at the formula, normally, why doesn't it point to the actual cell that contains the data? Now, this is another way of doing it. It's called name name area or name variable. It's you can designate the cell that contains the target data by the name. You put that range, name range. It's actually called name range, which is nothing but if you go to Excel's formula, you don't have to do it through this, but you go to name manager, right? And then when you have already named the range, but define names and apply names, that I will that's something that would take still some time, so I'm not going to talk about it this time, but it's just a simple thing. Now, so we got the terminal value in free cash flow to equity holders, right? You're not there's no weighted average cost of capital because this is only equity, so you discount it by equity to the firm. And here, so this is basically how you find G18, right? Is we know that it is 2018 free cash flow, right? Plus F5. And what was F5? Uh, 2017 long-term debt minus G5. and that's 2018 F5, then times F5 times growth rate of the firm. Now, so whatever cash flow to the equity holders would be still it would include the contribution from the debt, right? Because the growth from cash flow resulting from the growth of the total capital of the company, right? In other words, total capital also includes the long-term debt, and the growth from that can be calculated by the long-term debt times the growth rate, right? But of course, the long-term debt needs to be subtracted from that. But the growth from the long-term debt from the previous year belongs to the equity holders. So that is, like the dividend at time t plus 1 in Gordon growth model. It's like d dividend at time t, and then times 1 plus g. It will be like dividend at time t plus 1, and then divided by 1 minus divided by r minus or k minus g, and companies growth rate. Companies required return is return on equity only, right? Cost of equity. So then so we have a terminal value for free cash flow to equity holders as well. All these were now. Interesting thing is, you might wonder, current beta was given. We could also calculate beta, but that would be another step. And as I said, all of these highlighted cells are calculated values. They are not given data. Of course, risk-free return is given data. You look up the 3-month treasury yield or 1-year treasury yield. In this case, it would be 1-year treasury. Why? Because we are dealing with annual data. And market return, they were given, right? And then we can skip these, details of these, but we can we can go straight to finding present value of all those cash flows, right? But let me get to the let me get to this part first, and we're going to come back to the details of this part later, because the video has to be, I have to be concerned about the time management, and it's a mind-boggling thing. I was in a bit a while ago, I was in a split between, oh, should I go this, should I go for this first or uh, this is rather more like a support data support. Uh, I mean, they are very crucial, and it's more actually, it's a very clever thing. I mean, the way they did this is very clever, right? Um, Clever thing, right? So it's very interesting to look into how they did this. But as far as the model is concerned, and I've traced it, and nailed it down, but it would take a lot of time to go over that. Another 30-minute video. So since we all we need to do is now uh, get to the uh, get to the conclusion. In other words, cut to the chase, and it's the question of using the uh, uh, so let's get to the present value of all these free cash flows. Yeah, all you need to do is discount it back like 4 years, right? Discount it back 4 years. So here, this everything is discounted back, right? Everything is discounted back, and uh, present value factor, and so, oops, it's simply 1 over. See uh, here. Uh, you just discount it once, right? And then discount that once. I mean, it's like it's not like 1 plus r raised to n, but just you are just discounting just one period back because you have the you have this weighted average cost of capitals for 2016. So to find the you know to discount it 1 year back, all you need to do is just right. Uh, Instead of doing this, instead of discounting this, you discount 1 year prior, right? So in 2018, discount factor is like this. So using that discount factor, right? So everything is in present value, right? And also here, how did they find this? Of course, uh, it's basically cost of equity, discounting 1 period, discounting 2 periods. I mean, it is eventually discounting 2 periods, but discounting uh, discounting this 1 period back. Okay, what you see here is okay. So when you sum everything, right? That is the when you sum everything, it becomes intrinsic value of the company, right? Intrinsic value of the company, uh, and then equity common stock only will be subtracting or debt, uh, right? From this, subtracting the long-term debt. So in this model, there is no preferred stock. So just subtracting debt, long-term debt, will give you, and C5 is long-term debt, right? We'll see, C5 long-term debt, right? 2014 value, because our time zero is 2014, right? So that isolates only the total aggregate value of the equity. And since that is aggregate value, to get a per share value, right, we'll need to divide it by number of shares outstanding. Number of shares, that was like 100,000 or million or C6, yeah, 10,000 shares, right? And then you do that. That's the intrinsic value per share. Now, you might, and it's interesting that when we use, free cash flow to equity holders, it's slightly different, right? Right. And then of course you have to, because everything is all, the long debt is already, it is net of, long-term debt. So divided by number of shares, you come to this. So the valuation, there's a slight difference in valuation, and that difference is mainly due to I would say due to the discounting of these, individual elements, because to get to free cash flow to the firm, um, there were more elements there, more variables, and they had to be discounted, all of them. And also, so as I said, this part actually understanding, how they did this part, that is more interesting, and it's more revealing and more insightful and very clever, right? I wouldn't say genius, but it's still very clever. So it would be very, and there is no fancy math here. It's at best, just algebra, right? Uh, but they did, it very, cleverly. So that would be very informative to look into this. So we're going to be talking about this part in the next video, right? Thank you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.